This is by far one of the most interesting synthesizers that we have at MES. We have 3 oscillators here, counterintuitively on the right-hand side of the synth. Synthesizers tend to start with the oscillators on the left and work on a signal path left to right. They're incredibly wide in range, so the audible range is probably from about here to here. Everything above that is ultra-high frequency, ultra-low frequency. We have here the Steiner-Parker filter, famously one of the greatest filters ever. It's been cloned a lot, particularly in the Eurorack world. We have the amplifier, a dual envelope generator here, trigger generator, sample and hold, and keyboard. The best way to start with this synth is to have all of the switches in an off position. All of these modulation switches here are all set down. To activate things, you switch them up. Even all of these black switches, you can start with all of them off, and then you know exactly what you are activating when. The first thing that we're going to do is just listen to oscillator 1, and we're going to put it through the filter. We're going to click this up here so that the keyboard voltage controls the pitch of oscillator 1. It's got its level there. We are then going to just allocate oscillator 1 to the filter, which is just putting that switch that way. You can see here it's filter and VCA, so you can send it straight to the VCA or send it to the filter. We've sent it to the filter. The last thing we need to do is decide how we're going to trigger this envelope number 1, and we're going to trigger it with the keyboard. So now we can hear that. It's running through the filter. Already you can hear how nice that filter is. Do the same thing with oscillator 2, keyboard, bring it in. We have the timbre happening there. What we could then decide to do is take oscillator 3, put it in low frequency mode, and you can see here there are some options for how we can control the filter. We can put oscillator 3 up there. Then what should be happening? There we go. You can hear that there, the oscillator controlling the filter frequency. So now what I'd like to do is switch this envelope onto trigger. The trigger generator here, faster to the left, slower to the right. That's now triggering this envelope. Still got that filter modulation on there. Then what I'd like to do is the sample and hold generator. I'd like to trigger that with the trigger as well, and then use it to maybe control the frequency of oscillator 1. Then what I like to do usually is actually use the same thing to control the filter frequency. Turn the oscillator off maybe. We can introduce some noise. And there you have it, the Steiner-Parker. From here, you can introduce all kinds of complexity. Instead of using the sample and hold, for example, to modulate the oscillator 1, I can frequency modulate it with oscillator 2. I could then send the sample and hold to oscillator 2. And you get a little bit of an FM modulation there. According to the manual, with all of these switches and dials, there are 35 billion possible sounds. That's right, billion. But if you just remember to keep all of the settings set off to begin with, and then introduce the little elements as you need them, remembering that you need to decide how to trigger an envelope. You need to have the trigger on run in order to get the trigger happening. That you need to assign an oscillator, either to a filter or the VCA. These are the controls for the filter. These are the controls for the oscillators.